Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Jason Cohen and I'll be your host for today. I'm also joined by my co-hosts Fallon Kolika and Ashley Martin. A few reminders before we start. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask a Question button. Be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. We often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. And by the way, all the links that I'm announcing have been already shared with you on the chat or the live event Q&A window. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews at aka.ms/prseccomm, request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Stanislav Belov and Bojan Magusic will take us through Azure Security Center, what's new in the last 6 months. Stanislav is a senior program manager with the Azure Security Center team. Bojan is a program manager with the Azure Security Center team as well. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to them. Stanislav, Bojan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Just to start off, I wanted to, on behalf of our Azure Security Center product group, I would like to say big thank you to all of you for all your invaluable feedback, ideas, and reported issues you shared via various channels, like your Microsoft account teams, Azure portal, like feedback features across our products. We take this feedback very seriously, and many of the updates we're going to talk about today is the result of your customer voice. Please keep it coming. All right, so today, we wanted to share all the news and updates we've made to the product, but by no means this is going to be comprehensive and complete coverage of all the changes we've made to Azure Security Center and Azure Defender. We would need probably more than 1 hour to cover all of these, but instead we're going to highlight just the most important ones from our point of view, of course. So here's our agenda for today. So we're going to spend just briefly a couple of minutes on reminding ourselves what Azure Security Center is, what functions, what features it includes, and after that we're gonna talk about what's new in CSPM and CWPP. And if you're not comfortable and not familiar with these acronyms, just bear with us. So I'm gonna explain in just a second. And next we're gonna talk about the integrations between Azure Security Center and other Microsoft products, and not just Microsoft, but and in the end, we're gonna, if time persists, we're gonna do our best to answer any questions you might have. But again, so like Jason mentioned, I have my colleagues monitoring the chat, so please free to ask your questions during the session. And with that, let's talk a little bit about Azure Security Center. As you probably know, Azure Security Center is the unified infrastructure security management platform that helps you improve your security posture. And it also provides some additional threat protection capabilities for your hybrid workloads, as well as resources in the cloud, and not just our cloud, but other clouds as well. And we're going to talk about this in a second. So Azure Security Center features cover two major pillars of cloud security. First is CSPM, which stands for Cloud Security Posture Management. And this component is available to all Azure users. This is a free experience that includes features like Secure Score, detection of security misconfigurations across your Azure workloads. It also includes asset inventory, which helps you navigate and search for specific assets, things like regulatory compliance and more. The second pillar is Security Center's Integrated Cloud Workload Protection, as CWPP as we call it. It's also known as Azure Defender. And this feature adds advanced intelligent protection for your cloud and hybrid resources. So in a nutshell, so security posture management is just to understand and improve your security configuration of your cloud workloads. And Azure Defender is to protect, detect, and respond to potential threats to your cloud workloads. All right, so we've heard a lot from many of you that multi-cloud is becoming like a standard practice for most of the organization. It's just not just one cloud provider these days, and it's for a variety of reasons, of course. And it's challenging to have the right security controls and posture across those environments. So and multi-cloud is actually a big area of focus for you and for us. So, and we're committed to, support your broad security needs by continuing expanding our multi-cloud and hybrid support. And as you probably know, right now we do have support for other clouds like GCP, Google Cloud, and AWS. So, and this comes as the connector to those clouds. And so we use native CSP, Cloud Security Posture Management tools provided by those providers to bring recommendations available and generated by those providers to Azure Security Center to give you like a single pane of glass on what's happening with your multi-cloud environment. And also, we provide some server protection for virtual machines running in those clouds, as well as your on-premise resources. And for that, we're leveraging Azure Arc Service. All right, so that was kind of a quick refresher. And now let's see what we have new in Cloud Security Posture Management. So, like I said, based on your feedback, so we constantly updating our product, including the user experience and user interface. And recently, we added a couple of additional features to our recommendation page, inventory view, resource health, and so on. And just this is going to be a demo-heavy presentation, so we have only just a couple of slides. So just everything I'm going to talk right now, I'm going to show you what it looks like in a real environment in a second. So as I said, we have a whole new updates to the user interface, continuous export. Azure Security Center generates a lot of detailed security alerts and recommendations, and you can view them in the portal or via using programmatic tools like query the resource graph and so on. But sometimes you need to export this information for tracking purposes, or to make this information available to other monitoring tools, like for instance your third-party SIEM like Splunk or others. And that's where the continuous export comes in. And it actually allows you to customize what you want to be exported, where, it goes, and so on. And we're gonna take a look at that. So Azure Workbooks, actually, it's a very cool feature, and I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like in a second. But in general, Azure Workbooks is a service that provides tools for data analysis and creation of rich visual reports. And with integration with Azure Security Center, this makes this process straightforward, and you can build your own interactive workbooks and share them with your team members, your management, what have you. And also, actually, Security Center right now includes multiple already built-in workbooks to help you with your cloud security journey. And we will take a look at those in a second. As you probably know, Azure Policy Guest Configuration feature provides native capability to audit and configure operating system settings for both Azure VMs and Arc connected machines, again, regarding where they are, on premises or in other clouds. And this feature can be used per machine, or it can be deployed at scale. In a nutshell, guest configuration allows you to, first of all, collect information about the current operating system configuration, like registry keys and so on, and make sure that your operating systems are configured according to security best practices. Again, everything powered by the cloud. And also recently added a couple of new regulatory standards as requested by our customers, like for instance, like New Zealand, some regulatory, I don't remember the exact acronym for that. And we also recently updated our Azure CIS standard as well. All right, let's now let's see what it looks like. Just let me open my environment. All right, the first was the recommendation view. So as you probably know, so until recently we only had this one view. So all the recommendations grouped by the controls, and it's pretty nice. So you can see what all those recommendations grouped by categories. You can see potential score, security score associated with each control, and see what's your progress looks like in terms of reaching as high security score as possible, of course. But what we also added recently is this all recommendations view that can be helpful in some scenarios. For instance, you can right away see which standard or which regulatory standard any particular recommendation is coming from. Like for instance, whether it's included in Azure Security Benchmark. Does it have any relationship to HIPAA standard, and so on and so forth. So some customers found this helpful. Another actually feature we recently added is relationship between different recommendations. This is one of the most recent additions. I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm going to show you that. For instance, this one, vulnerability in virtual machines should be remediated. So as we can see here, this is what I was talking about, the related recommendation. This is a new section it's not available in all recommendations, but only for those which have some dependencies or some relationships with other recommendations. Like for instance, this one, to be able to see vulnerabilities, you need to, of course, deploy the vulnerability assessment solution to your machine. This is the kind of the relationship I was talking about. All right. Now, the next was the inventory view. So like I already mentioned, so this is a place where you can see all the assets currently monitored by Azure Security Center. And what we recently added, again, so as part of our multi-cloud strategy, is that now you can filter resources based on their location. So meaning that if you, for instance, if your team only focuses on like AWS resources, you can just keep the only AWS and see the resources currently being monitored by a security center located in AWS environment. Or you can do the same for, let's say, on-premise machines, and you will be able to see some resources connected to Azure Security Center from on-premises. Yeah, that's the inventory view. And actually, there is another filter we just added, I believe, last week or the week before, is this one, applications, installed applications. So the idea is, and this actually information is made available by threat vulnerability management component of the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and we're going to talk about this integration a little bit later. Like, just stay with us, because this is a very significant improvement. But for now, just to kind of give you an idea, so this TVM component of MDE can actually collect information about the applications running on your virtual machines or physical machines if they're on premises, and report on, and you can actually just go ahead and find, let's say, all the virtual machines that have specific application running. Like, for instance, just an example, Adobe Reader, and it will filter and show me all the machines that have Adobe Reader installed for some reason. So, and so there's a security professional. You can just go to here, and this is also the new. See this installed application? It's part of the resource health view, and this is also we added just last week or the week before. And that allows you to see all the applications and their versions, which is also important from the software management and vulnerability management perspective. So like in my case, I see that I have on this machine, I have Adobe Reader, very old, by the way, running, which has more than 100 known vulnerabilities. Definitely not good sign, right? So, and this is also end of support version. So definitely we need to take some action on that. Yes, we're gonna come back to this later on when we talk about integration with MDE or Microsoft Defender for Endpoints. Now, so our next one was the continuous export in workbooks. All right, so continuous export, as you probably know, like I already mentioned, it allows you to collect and aggregate information about your resources over time. It's available under the settings, and it's recently reached the general availability. So meaning it should be available to in all regions, and it's fully supported. So it allows you to actually, it's probably not the best environment to show you that. So identity. All right, if we go here, continuous export. So we have two options here. So we can export the information about the available security recommendations, secure score state, regulatory compliance state, and active security alerts to either Event Hub or a local analytic workspace. There are two options. So if you want to, for instance, share this information or send this information to your third-party SIEM, like Splunk, for instance, you would probably use the Event Hub, or for some other reasons, including Azure Workbooks, which we're going to talk about in a second, you would need to export this information to Azure Local Analytics Workspace. And here we provide you the flexibility to decide what information you want to export and how frequently, whether it's just snapshots, like every weekly, snapshots, or you want to export it real time as soon as any changes made to the resources. And once you have all this information collected over time, you can use it. Like for example, in workbooks, Azure Workbooks integration with Security Center. Once it's all right. So, like I already mentioned, we provide 4 out-of-box built-in workbooks that allows you to first track your secure score over time. Again, this requires data collection by leveraging the continuous export we just talked about. And so once you have this information collected for a certain period of time, you will be able to see how your environment progresses in terms of secure score, and you can track your security posture management hopefully improvement. And this workbook allows you to see all this information, visual information. You can see, you can drill down and see the all the details, which resources are healthy, which resources have changed their status from healthy to unhealthy, and you can just go deeper and deeper, and until you actually see the actual resources and see what happened to those resources. Pretty powerful. Another similar workbook is the compliance over time. So the idea is pretty similar, but it's maybe for certain slightly different personas. So if you're like a compliance specialist and you need to make sure and track your progress, let's say, as far as the compliance, like again, depending on the industry, depending on your environment, you might need to follow certain regulatory compliance standards. So, and we keep adding those standards, and we already have more than a dozen. And again, so the idea is the same. You can see how your environment as far as the compliance, and you can see the progress over time. All right, so the other 2 workbooks are vulnerability assessment findings and the system updates. Vulnerability assessment findings allows you to see existing current active vulnerabilities across your virtual machines, SQL instances, containers, and again, in a nice visual view. So again, so all these reports or workbooks can be shared with anyone who has access to Azure portal, meaning that to anyone who has Azure Active Directory account in your tenant. So there are some additional configurations required, but we recently published a blog. So I would ask my team members who are monitoring the chat to provide the links to those resources if they haven't yet. So we do publish a lot of supplementary information in our blog channel. So, and really quickly, so the 4th workbook is the system updates. It's a nice view which can show you all the resources that have missing system updates. That's the workbooks created by Microsoft. But Azure Workbooks, like I said, it's an open platform. It's a service, and anyone can leverage this service and create their own workbooks. And that's what we encourage you to do. What we also created, and as you probably know, we Azure Security Center team has their own Azure GitHub repository where we share all kind of artifacts we've created, including the workbooks. And here you can find some additional custom workbooks we've created, and not just us. So this is open repository, so anyone can join, contribute, share their own work with others. So, and we really encourage you to do so. So please share the link with the community. And with that, I'm going to, no, so the last thing I wanted to talk about. So guest configuration. This is also one of the recent additions. Like I mentioned, so guest configuration is used to monitor, to collect information from the operating system and configure it. So, and we also made it easier for you to deploy the agent required to collect this information from the operating system by creating this auto provisioning option. So meaning that if you set this to on, this guest configuration agent will be automatically deployed to your virtual machines, and it will be automatically onboarded, and you will be able to see all those recommendations related to operating system hardening. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bojan to tell us what's new in the Azure Security Center Cloud Workload Protection component, or Azure Defender. Bojan?
Amazing. Thank you, Stan. Hi, everyone. Bojan here, and I'll be walking you through what's new on the CWP, or as some call it, the CWPP side in the last 6 months. So here I would like to touch on this slide very, very briefly on the concept of CWP. The CWP pillar in Security Center provides dedicated threat protection capabilities for cloud workloads. And this set of capabilities, so it's not one, but a set of capabilities, is what we refer to when we say Azure Defender. So with CWP capabilities or Azure Defender, an organization can take advantage of dedicated security analytics for a variety of resources and workloads, which can range from either compute, potentially data workloads, and even to the cloud service layer. So on this slide, we wanted to provide an overview of the dedicated threat protection capabilities that are supported at the moment for different workload types. So these include Azure Defender for servers, which historically is one of probably the most well-known Azure Defender plans out there, but also others such as Azure Defender for App Services, Kubernetes, Azure Container Registries, ACR, SQL Storage, Key Vault, ARM DNS. And obviously the plan is to add even more as time goes by. Now going into some of the announcements. So next slide, please. Brilliant, thank you. And going into some of the announcements in the CWP space of Security Center, I'd like to start with an announcement that happened around May in respect of data workloads. And that's the announcement of Azure Defender for open source relational databases. So with Azure Defender for data, in general, our mission is to help organizations protect their cloud and hybrid data estate through prevention and security alerts that help them respond to security incidences. So historically, we did this through two different Azure Defender plans, Azure Defender for SQL servers on machine and Azure Defender for Azure SQL database servers. And in May, we announced the expansion of Azure Defender SQL protection capabilities to open source relational databases, meaning we're bringing the SQL threat protection capabilities to Azure databases for PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MariaDB. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what kind of alerts does then Azure Defender for open source relational databases provide to an organization? And these vary. They range from brute force attacks, which we still see as one of the most common DB-related attacks out there, but they also go towards suspicious database activities, even anomalous database access, and even some suspicious query patterns. Another announcement that I'd like to touch briefly upon in this space is on the cloud service layer. So here we announced 2 new Azure Defender plans over the last 6 months, Azure Defender for Resource Manager and Azure Defender for DNS, each providing dedicated threat protection capabilities for the cloud service layer. So ARM, or Azure Resource Manager, is the management and deployment service for Azure, which makes it a potential target for attackers. And whether the resource management operations are performed through the Azure portal, maybe even through Azure CLI or REST APIs, Azure Defender for Resource Manager is able to detect suspicious resource management operations, suspicious activities, and even, for example, is able to detect, detect lateral movement from the management layer in Azure to the Azure Resource Data Plane. We've also added more alerts for Azure Defender for Resource Manager in Key Vault. And another announcement in this space is Azure Defender for DNS. So this provides an additional layer of protection for resources that are connected to Azure DNS. In doing so, it also then continuously monitors DNS queries from your Azure resources and provides security alerts about suspicious activities. Another announcement I like to touch briefly on here is the CI/CD vulnerability scanning of container images. Now, we all know it's important to enforce security best practices from the very beginning in order to ensure that resources are secure by default, even regardless of the development lifecycle phase. And you might have heard about this shift left concept. And in this context, it's all about making sure that even in the code and build or test phase, we are thinking about security. In order to facilitate this, we've added a new vulnerability scanning feature for container images as part of Azure Defender for Container Registry. So this new vulnerability scanning feature utilizes Trivy, and it empowers developers to scan for common vulnerabilities in container images before pushing those images to container registry. And as of today, we do this for GitHub workflows, and the plan is obviously to go beyond GitHub and include more workflows as we go along. A couple of other announcements in this space before we go to the demo and to the better together include the Azure Defender for Kubernetes clustering extension. So this is important because it allows us to extend the threat protection capabilities offered for AKS to clusters on-prem. And this extension can also help protect unmanaged Kubernetes clusters on other cloud providers, in example, GCP and or AWS. As part of also our ongoing effort to support additional use cases and scenarios, we've also added this announcement of Azure Defender now also scanning container registries protected with Azure Private Link. And with that, I'd like to also showcase and highlight a couple of things. So Stan, if it's okay with you, just for a couple of minutes, I'll take over the screen so we can switch into a demo environment. So Stan, team, if you could just let me know as soon as you could see it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you for confirming. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and I've navigated inside of Security Center. Then I selected the pricing and settings section and selected the subscription on which I would like to enable that dedicated threat protection capabilities that we covered. So in my case, this is a test subscription. In your case, it might also be a TEP subscription or something else. What I wanted to highlight here is you can see the threat protection capabilities and enable them individually. So although I have all of them enabled here, you can tailor it to be specific specific to your environment. A couple of things to highlight, as we mentioned. So when we are talking about Azure Defender for Data, we facilitate this through these 3 plans. So Azure Defender for Azure SQL databases, SQL servers on machines, and as of May, Azure Defender for open source relational databases, so covering PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MariaDB. What I also wanted to very, very briefly touch on here is at the same page or blade, you can also then enable Azure Defender for DNS and Azure Defender for Resource Manager that we covered. If you're looking to leverage the CI/CD vulnerability scanning capability, you will need to enable Azure Defender for Container Registry. So I just wanted to highlight that one. Once you've done that, the question usually becomes, okay, but how can I now validate that everything is functioning, that it's successfully working and after it's been turned on? So there are a couple of different ways. You can navigate to the security alerts section, and here you can leverage a built-in feature which is called sample alerts. With sample alerts, you can then make yourself familiar with the different sample alerts, which can even differ for the respective Azure Defender plan, which you can see here. So as you can see, we already have even DNS here. Another resource that I would like to share with you is something that Stan also touched upon. And we have a vibrant community that's also taking place on our tech community articles. So if you navigate to aka.ms/ASC blogs, you're able to see technical articles. In order to successfully validate alerts, in addition to the sample alerts feature, you can also leverage the Azure Defender POC series that our team has created. So you can select for the individual Azure Defender plan that you're interested in, and you can find all of them here. A pro tip, you can even select one of them, which you can then leverage the link to how to effectively perform an Azure Security Center POC. And inside of this article, which was written by a colleague of ours, you can then also find the link to all of them. So with that, Stan, I'll pass the word or the baton over to you to take us through the Better Together section.
Yeah. Thank you, Bojan. All right, let me take this back. And can you let me know when you can see it?
Yes, we can.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you, Bojan, for this great overview of what we added to Defender. All right, so our next topic is something we call Better Together, or it's just integration between Azure Security Center and other Microsoft products in this case. So all right, so the first thing we recently added is the bidirectional alert synchronization with Azure Sentinel. So, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to, synchronize the status of Azure Security incidents that contains Azure Defender alerts. And for example, when the security, Azure Sentinel incident containing this alert generated by Azure Defender is closed, the alert will be closed in Azure Defender automatically. So I know it's probably confusing, but so and again, it depends how you're comfortable with Azure Sentinel. But let me right away show you what it looks like. So as many of you know, the way Azure Sentinel works is by leveraging connectors, and we have a dedicated connector between Azure Sentinel and Azure Defender. And if you go to the Azure Defender connector configuration page, you'll be able to find this new addition I just mentioned, this bidirectional sync option. So which allows you to synchronize those alerts, meaning that if you've closed the incident over here in Sentinel, this information will be synced back to Azure Defender, and you don't have to close the same alert in 2 places once you've enabled this synchronization. It's currently in preview, meaning that we are performing some late validation and should reach GA pretty soon. So now another very important integration point is the integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So all the Windows operating systems currently reach like a general availability for this integration, meaning that all supported Windows operating system currently can be automatically onboarded by Security Center to MD, and I will demonstrate that in a second. So a couple of months ago, we added support for Linux. It's currently in public preview, so again, we just validating that everything is working as it should. So far, we haven't seen any significant issues. I mean, it should go GA also pretty soon. Also, as part of the integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, we just last week or the week before, we added support for MD threat vulnerability management. Now you have, when it comes to vulnerability management in Azure Security Center, now you have two options. Until last week, you only had Qualys. Now you can choose between Qualys and MD TVM. So again, this is just a matter of preferences. But again, so to be able to use TVM, your machine should be onboarded to MDE because TVM is part of MDE. So, and what this integration does is just it takes the vulnerabilities detected by MDE and presents them in Azure Security Center, and we will see that in a second. And the last thing we added, I believe, around summertime, is integration with Firewall Manager, and it's part of helping you view your security status. We added this integration. We added Firewall Manager dashboard into Azure Security Center dashboard. So technically, we just connected this blade, which it still exists as a separate blade, but now it's available as part of the Azure Security Center experience. Just so as a security professional, you can now see all this and get access to all those components in one place. And this allows you to see, the firewall coverage, and across your network and centrally manage Azure firewall policies, for instance, right from Azure Security Center. All right, now let's see what it looks like in a demo. So now the integration with MDE. So this integration has two components, two parts, if you will. So first is automated onboarding to all the machines connected to Azure Security Center with Azure VMs or on-prem machines or virtual machines running in other clouds. But there is a requirement here. All those machines running outside of Azure have to be connected to Azure Security Center via Arc, or connected to Azure via Azure Arc. This is a requirement for this integration to work. So this is a very important point. So meaning that once you've connected those machines to Azure and Azure Security Center, in this case, they will be automatically onboarded to MDE. And once they're onboarded to MDE, you will be able to see all the alerts generated by MDE in Azure Security Center. And let me show you what it's going to look like. For instance, here's I have an alert in Azure Security Center, as you can see here, telling me that someone executed Mimikatz, like a credential stealing tool on my machine. And I can easily tell that this alert came from MDE by looking at this link. So as part of the alert detail page, we can see that this alert came from MDE, and we have provided even a link. So we can just click that link and go to the actual alert in the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint portal, and do some additional investigation and try to understand what happened and see some maybe related suspicious activities. So that's the alert integration. But I also mentioned automated onboarding. So there are some prerequisites for that. First, you need to make sure that you have Azure Defender for Servers plan enabled at the subscription level. We're here, see this, the Azure Defender for Servers, because this integration is part of the Azure Defender for Servers bundle. And also you need to make sure that this integration is actually enabled. It's enabled by default, but you know, someone in your organization could have maybe disabled it for some reason. So, but you need to make sure that it's actually enabled under the settings page, and we have like a dedicated integration blade over here. So once you've done that, all the new machines created in Azure, whether it's Linux machines or Windows machines, they will be automatically onboarded to Defender for endpoints, and we can see in my case, I see all the supported Windows operating system 12, 16, 19, and Linux. In my case, it's CentOS. As you can tell from the name, it's CentOS 7.9, or I believe I had some Ubuntu server. They have been automatically onboarded to MD automatically without me going through a separate onboarding process. All right, so the last thing I wanted to okay, so the integration with Firewall Manager, like I said, so we added this blade, this page over here. Unfortunately, in my environment, I don't have a lot to showcase here, but let's see if we have something interesting in this environment. Yeah. So, and again, on the overview, on the main page of this Security Center, we also added a separate tile over here, so that it's actually shows you all the virtual hubs and virtual networks. And if you go to the virtual manager itself, you can also see some the detailed information about the firewall, protected VNet, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's as far as the integration with firewall managers. Right, the last piece, last item on our list for today was integration with TVM. So, like I already mentioned, TVM is part of MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and so what as part of this integration with TVM, to make this process easier for you, onboarding to TVM and onboarding to the vulnerability assessment, we also, last week or just a couple of days ago, we added auto provisioning option for a vulnerability assessment agent. And as you can see here, when you enable this auto provisioning, you're given a choice. You're given a choice which vulnerability assessment solution you would like to use for your environment, for your machines. And you have option whether it's Microsoft Defender TVM or Qualys. Like until recently, you had only one option. Now you have two. And once you enable that, so all these machines will be automatically onboarded to MD, and you will be able to get vulnerability assessment. Where is this machine? For instance, generated by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Threat Vulnerability Management component. Like for instance, you see, in my case, like I already showed you this machine with Adobe Reader installed, and this is information actually collected and generated by Threat Vulnerability Management, which is part of the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And as part of this integration with Security Center, we can also see this information if we go to, and I already demonstrated that, but I'm going to repeat that really quickly. If we go to inventory view, so this installed application, like I mentioned already, information coming from also TVM. But if we go to the any resource health page and go to installed application, so all this information about the installed software and their versions and existing vulnerabilities is part of this threat TVM integration. And as you can see here, there is a link which, if you click, it will take you right to this TVM page, and you can find more information about the existing vulnerabilities for this particular resource. As you can see here, yes, I do have Adobe Reader. It's old. It have a whole bunch of vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities, and we in the TVM even tells us that there are a whole bunch of exploits available. So I mean that you definitely need to take some action to remediate this problem. All right, so let me see. So we have just 5 minutes left, and I believe we covered everything we wanted for today.
Great. We have some.
Just a couple of closing words, Jason, before I turn it over to you. So now, Microsoft Ignite is just around the corner, and we have a lot of news coming up, a lot of changes, new products, new features. I barely holding this. I would love to share that right away, but I cannot. Please join us at Ignite. You will see a lot of exciting, surprising news. Yeah, please go ahead, sign up. Yeah, so, and thank you again for being a great community. Thank you again for your feedback. Please continue. And Jason, it's back to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a few unanswered questions that I'd like to get addressed in the last few minutes we have. The first one is Palo Alto's Prisma Cloud has hundreds of regulatory frameworks, and M365 Compliance Center has hundreds of premium templates. Are there any plans to provide something similar in ASC?
Yes, we do have some plans. We definitely going to expand in this area. So unfortunately, I cannot provide any details regarding the work we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe just to add on that, Jason, if you allow, to maybe build upon what Stan said, we are actually going to be announcing something in this space also at Ignite. So do make sure you register and join Ignite.
Yeah, good point, Bojan. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one we have is when will vulnerability scanner, will be available in GCC High? Is there any way to integrate Nessus scanner into Security Center?
I will start with the second one. So currently we don't have any plans to integrate Nessus. Nessus is Nessus tenable? I don't remember. If it's tenable, then yes, we do have plans, and it's again, please join us at Ignite.
Great, thank you. The next one we have is the new preview feature, installed applications. Does that track by apps in use, or does it capture all the entire apps installed on the endpoint device, including ones not in use?
The latter, yes. So all the installed applications.
Great. And then the next one we have is when we want to use Microsoft Defender TVM, is there an option to not see the Azure non-domain machine in the Microsoft Defender portal?
Not to see Azure. Can you please repeat the second part? Not to see which machines?
It was written, is there an option that I don't want to see my Azure non-domain machine in MDE portal? We primarily want to use MDE to manage IT infrastructure and do not want our Microsoft M365 security score to get impacted by Azure workload security.
Yeah, these scores are different. So Azure Security Score is Azure Security Score M365. Microsoft Score is different. It's for Microsoft 365. So there is no currently connection or dependency or anything between these two scores.
Great. And the last one we have is, are products without a CVE shown in the software inventory page, as previously they did not? Thus, the software inventory was not complete. Is this fixed?
So this CV inventory, like I said, we just added. It's part of this integration between Security Center and MDE. It's currently in public preview. So meaning that there might be some minor changes, minor issues, but I'm not aware about any significant or anything affecting the functionality. So, but please keep in mind. So once it's not GA, we do expect some minor issues.
Great. Thank you. So I would like to thank Stanislav and Bojan for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.